that being called the apostle today is potentially just out of order, just doesn't make sense.
Well, let's look at the origin of the word. One who is sent, apostolos. I mean, we can all conclude that all are called to be discípulos, and not everybody is called to be apostolos. But everybody is, in fact, supposed to have an apostolate. That is, we all are supposed to have a particular apostolic ministry. But that apostolic ministry is under the Episcopos. Now, the problem by assuming a title like apostle means that it has the potential of that person becoming a free agent. And there is no such thing as free agency in the church. At least it was never intended to be. The apostolic college of which the apostles were members took upon itself, under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, to select Matthias. So technically there is no precedent for someone in the apostolic college to begin acting independently. So my fear is that if we ever get to a point of saying when a bishop retires that he's no longer a bishop and he can be an apostle, or if a bishop just kind of gets weary of doing bishoping, that he can become an apostle, I would say that's a very interesting innovation. It has no historical base, but where I am is that I am very, very shy about innovation, because innovation too often leads to institutionalization. That is, once we do these innovative things, the next thing you know, people think that it's the way it's always been, because that's the way Apostle Jones did it. I'll give you an absurd example. There was once a parish that had a priest for years, and he retired, and so a new priest came in, and the people approached the bishop, and they said, "Bishop, we don't like our new priest. He's not as holy as our last priest." And they said, "Really? What do you mean?" "Well, he's just not as holy as the last priest. Can you give me an example?" "Well, yes, our long-time beloved rector, every time he would get the chalice, he would walk over before communicating to people, and he would stand at the altar rail and place his hand on the altar rail, and they said he would meditate. Then he would come and he would give the chalice to each one of us, and it was clear that he was meditating. And this new priest just runs from the altar with the chalice, goes down and ministers the communion." "Oh, okay." So the bishop wisely called the retired priest on the phone and says, "Could you tell me anything about it?" He said, "Yeah, I'd be happy to. After we got all the brand new carpeting put into the sanctuary of the church, every time I walked across it, there was a lot of static electricity. And I didn't want to zap people on the lip with a chalice, so I always touched the altar rail so that I could
ground themselves
before I gave the chalice." So, so it's interesting. That obviously was an eccentric and innovative circumstance that had a basis in practicality. But I get very nervous when people assume certain things upon themselves. For example, a bishop. It's impossible for a bishop to be a bishop without having a see. There's no such thing as a bishop being a bishop apart from being connected to a see, that is, a diocese. I, for example, might say, "You know what? I'm tired of being the bishop, the 8th bishop of Quincy. I think I'm just going to become a freelance bishop." Well, the moment I did that, I would lose certain authority, because I would have been stepping outside of that area to which God had called me. Now, I can be the retired bishop of Quincy and not do anything, but I can't assume anything on myself other than being the bishop, the 8th bishop of Quincy, retired. That's one of the problems, if I may just chart some recent unhappy experience in the Episcopal Church and in the Canadian Church. The primate of the church in Canada, the Anglican Church in Canada, and the primate of the Episcopal Church are the only two bishops, in the Catholic world who don't have a diocese. Every other bishop has a diocese. Every other primate. The Bishop of Rome, the Pope is the Bishop of Rome. The Archbishop of Canterbury is the Bishop of Canterbury. But these are the only two primates in the entire Anglican world and in the Catholic faith that do not have a diocese. The same to be said in England, for example. You don't hear about the assisting Bishop of Durham or the suffragan Bishop of London. They don't have such an animal. If you are a bishop in the Church of England, you have a see, whether it's functional or not. So that, for example, the Bishop of London has, I think, 4 bishops whom we might call Bishop Suffragan or assisting, but they're the Bishop of Fulham, the Bishop of, I can't remember all of them. I used to know all that. But they'd be a bishop of a particular diocese, even though that diocese is no longer a functional diocese, but it's an historic diocese. Mm-hmm. And it's so in this country, too, that by and large, we have gotten a little bit regionalized. I was recently talking with somebody who was talking about a network or a district or something like that. I can't even comprehend a bishop of a district or a bishop of a network. I don't know what that's about. That's purple dress up without ecclesial grounding.
Because they have no real authority over that church.
That's right.
It's a bunch of, well, you know, what I did study is prior to the Treaty of Milan, I think it was, that's what Rome's problem was with the Church of England.
That's right.
They said that the bishops really didn't have sole control over those churches. There were a bunch of churches of which bishops oversaw, but they didn't have real power to move priests back and forth and have executive order. And so that was one of their gripes and issues.
And well, it should be, because there are some bishops that I'd be more than happy to put in a district somewhere, and then I wouldn't have to deal with them. But but that's not the historical faith.